Attorney, Mr. Dan Van Thiel, is here with us to discuss the legal issues involved with the administrative rule and the ramifications of not complying with our legal counsel's directives. Mr. Van Thiel, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. This district has received, and we all know, we're a part, as are many other school districts in this state, of a risk pool. And you all know PACE is the administrator who deals with that particular risk pool, and they constantly assess risks in school districts. Premiums, the cost of that, what they will cover and what risks they will assume has a cost attached to it.
I had one quick question. Is it true that OSBA is the owner of PACE?
I don't know whether they are or not, Kyle. I don't know.
I think I found in 2006 was Oregon Special Districts Association had insured some schools and OSBA had insured others, so they then combined to form PACE, but I don't know who owns it actually.
But they are joined together.
Well,
that's how it was formed, as joint.
They're tied in with one another. Now, if you proceed along the lines to allow everyone that holds a concealed weapons permit free access to school properties, school events, that will be viewed from a cost standpoint and from a risk standpoint as being more expensive and enhanced. Do I know how they will do that? Do I know what that cost is? No, I do not. I assume it can be ascertained.
One question I have, since that's been the case since 1996 in Baker, why the sudden change in perceived risk, increase in risk for 2011?
Mark, I can't tell you that other than many times risk is looked at and nobody gives it a great deal of thought until something has occurred or something draws their attention to it, and then people take a look at it and they think, wow, we hadn't even thought about that. We need to think about this. But I can assure you that in the area of allowing people with concealed weapons permits free and ready access to school property for school events, it will have a cost attached to it, probably an enhanced cost over and above what the school district presently pays, and it will be evaluated from a liability standpoint, however they will do that. And I don't know that. Check it out.
Why was that fact not addressed by the federal and the state laws? They just didn't think about it, or?
And again, I can't tell you that, but I got the federal statute, and it goes on for pages. It talks about what the background of it was and why they were concerned about it.
Right.
But it doesn't give us that kind of insight.
That's why I question OSBA, saying, oh, we need all this, when both the state legislature and the U.S.
Right.
have not seen that need.
And I don't know what's in the mind of the federal authorities. Mark.
Well, in terms of insurance risk, the answer doesn't lie in state and federal law. It lies in insurance practice. So it's really more about our coverage.
And what people, I guess, are willing, what kind of risk they're willing to assume, and what they're going to charge you for assuming that risk.
So, would you talk about the Medford case as whether it is or is not a law? Because, we're going to come down very clearly. And I want the board to be together, not to split, because we've been in deliberations and you hear in the news media that we've already implemented all kinds of stuff. We're passing ordinances. We don't pass ordinances. We haven't implemented. We're in deliberations. Nothing's been done. All we have is documents that we're considering. But in the considerations of the documents, there's one contention very clearly articulated that the state and federal laws establish a floor, and that is where we need to be. That meets our policy. And there's another contention, say from PACE, that you take the state and federal laws and Medford, and that is a law. Would you address whether or not Medford is a law?
Medford is the law of the state of Oregon. You need to understand that law comes from different sources. Law can come in the Constitution, federal or state. Law can be found in the Oregon Revised Statutes. Laws can be found, and legal resolution to conflict can be found in administrative rules. Laws can be found in court decisions. This is what I get when I practice law. These books come out entitled the advance sheets. These are the appellate court decisions of the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court of the State of Oregon. This is the law. You're going to leave the safety of the school district up to people that may or may not have a concealed weapons permit.
It's worked for the last 15 years.
All right, well, and I guess we can be thankful that there haven't been any shootings. But it's going to be almost impossible to persuade me, so you understand my biases,
Sure.
that somebody that has a concealed weapons permit and goes into a school building, what would be the rationale? The teacher in the Medford case says, well, the rationale for me carrying a weapon is that I have a violent husband. He may have a gun, and so I want a gun. I want a gun at the place of employment. All right? Now then I envision the next scenario. This violent individual comes into the classroom, and he and his former wife, I'm assuming both in possession of firearms, start exchanging shots with one another. How is the safety of the young people that are in our care protected in that situation?
So she should have to defend her students with a stapler like Columbine?
Well,
That's
Or
what
just get shot.
she needs to protect herself in whatever way she needs to, but I'm...
Columbine, they had a stapler, because that's all they were allowed.
Right.
And they lost their life, giving their life to defend the students they cared so much for, and that district made sure the only thing they had to protect their students was a stapler.
Weapons in a school setting don't provide safety to students, but to the contrary, they create risk where none existed
I beg to differ that none exists.
Well, yeah, but you can't take statistics. All you need is one of these to occur, and then you're going to say, whoa, this has never happened before. And
The insurance company uses statistics, that's what we have to deal with.
No, I understand it.
So to throw statistics out, I don't see that as a world we can live in.
Well, these statutes obviously developed in recent years as a reaction to an observation that what we see today.
You're talking about the gun-free schools?
Yes.
Okay.
You know, when I went to college, when I went to school in Alaska, I had guns in my pickup. Every kid that I know of in that school, we shot all kinds of game going to school and shot them going home and guarded or threw them in the back of the pickup. We live in a different world.
Right.
And that's why we've got these statutes, and that's why you need to look at that's why I mentioned what I think your role has to be, and I don't think the focus has to be or should be on, let's see if we can protect folks that have a concealed weapons permit. Let's keep
These are kids. These are not CHL holders that are getting killed. I am not about protecting CHL holders.
I understand.
Every one of these is somebody's beloved son or daughter.
Right.
I'm not talking about gun rights.
And I'm not
And
either.
that's, I know, well, I hope so.
No, I'm not.
And that's why Pace is saying 100 to 1, they're lying. So that means they're either uninformed or they have an agenda. And that scares me when we're talking about Pace's agenda, not the safety of our kids.
And I'm not talking with Pace. I haven't dealt with
No,
the
I know.
school district.
It is, I do have a question on that. We're talking about us as we're the only one in the state. Now, I've only surveyed 73 school districts.
Okay.
And there's 187 or 8 or whatever. But of those 73, 63 have no restrictions. We're at least restricting knives and stuff. So to me, we're taking an advanced step. And yet we're being treated like, you know, we're turning over the wild, wild west. And it's like, no, 86% of the school districts I surveyed have equal or less restrictions than us.
And you certainly can look at other school districts, but that's why I think the Oregon statutes reflect that these are individual decisions made by individual government
But the
interests.
insurance company is, we should be in the top 13.5% as far as less risk. And yet everybody is saying, boy, you know, you're the worst of the worst.
You're saying, this was a previous comment you made, you're saying that a concealed weapon permit holder is not qualified to bring a weapon in a school. Is that what you're saying?
No, I didn't say anything about him having any qualification whatsoever.
Well, you said before the concealed weapons permit course doesn't qualify someone to come to the school. But
When you're talking about the training,
when you're talking about the training, you said it doesn't qualify them.
No, what I'm saying there is, and what I tried to articulate, maybe not as good as I should have, is that once you make a decision to allow people that have concealed weapons permits free access to the school campus or whatever event.
That's the point, isn't it? They already have access, and there's nothing we can do to stop it.
The last 15 years.
There's gonna be guns in the school, whether you like it or not.
The crux of that question, Kyle, is, just like on the police force, if you have the right to use a concealed weapon for defense, and however all of that is defined. If you do so,
A concealed weapons permit is there.
yes,
There's no degrees of it. It's either there or it's not.
I understand that. But there are liability outcomes to the use of that, potential liability outcomes to the use of that weapon. And not in terms of law, but eventually in terms of law and our insurance coverage and what the liability would be in a civil type suit situation. If we are able to prove that, yes, we allowed our employees and contractors to have concealed weapons as an enhancement to that in their presence in the schools, whether it was anonymous or voluntary or whatever it might have been, we provided and/or required training or certification for special environments. That's my understanding in terms of the insurance question. And
What is the price on a first grader? How much money? I mean,
It would be horrendous if you were sitting in a court of law.
I'm not talking about a court of law. You're saying, look at it from a dollars and cents standpoint. All these kids are dead. Okay, what dollars? 723,000? How do we do that? And not one accidental school shooting from a CHL, zero, that I can find.
All I can go back to, Mark, is I guess our government, whether it's the federal or the state, thought it was important to pass legislation and laws that relate to what you can do with weapons on school campuses.
And they exempted the
And
CHL.
they provide for exemptions, and the Oregon law, under the Medford case, allows you to do even something more to minimize
Right.
potentially the risk.
And that's the key. I want to go back to the federal and the state and all their wisdom. I acknowledge they're a lot smarter in this than I am. I see no reason to go above and beyond that, but I definitely appreciate your insight.
Well, it's good to be here, good to talk to you.
I would like to say one thing. We're talking about teachers who are people that I know, and we're talking about they're doing things that I don't know at all. Teachers are people that nurture, are people that are trained from the time they start never to strike a child, never to verbally abuse a child. Violence is not in the nature of a teacher that stays in the classroom very long. Can I say that without prejudice, ladies?
Yes.
Thank you. I would like to say that this teacher is not your shooter. Probably psychologically, 99% of them are not properly set up to be the shooter. I would like you to think about the teachers that you've known and try to picture one of your teachers coming into the cafeteria, waving around a gun and exchanging shots. I can't think, it's not in our nature. It really is not.
the laws, whether it's weapons or reading programs. And consistently, not just in terms of the school district, but in this community at large, we have been behind the curve on doing so. And in the last handful of years, we have really come up to speed, and I don't know if this puts us in some awkward leadership role statewide or not, but the intent, my specific intent here is we ought to be at the forefront. We don't want to be a decade behind addressing policies in general. That's what really brings us to this, is trying to get that alignment across the board.
You're trying to do it right, that's why you get all the money you get paid. All right, folks.
All right, if then our work session is done. I think